Nuclear War Survival Skills. Chapter 1 continued. The dangers of nuclear weapons, myths, and facts. Page 19. From 1,000 row antigens per hour, 1,000 R/HR to 10 R/HR, 48 hours, as to decay from 1,000 R/an hour to 100 R/an hour, 7 hours. Only in high fallout areas would the dose rate 1 hour after the explosion be as high as 1,000 row antigens per hour. If the dose rate 1 hour after explosion is 1,000 R an hour, it would take about 2 weeks for the dose rate to be reduced to 1 R/an hour, solely as a result of radioactive decay. Weathering effects will reduce the dose rate further. For example, rain can wash fallout particles from plants and houses to lower positions on or closer to the ground. Surrounding objects would reduce the radiation dose from these low-lying particles. Figure 1.2 also illustrates the fact that at a typical location where a given amount of fallout from an explosion is deposited later than 1 hour after the explosion, the highest dose rate and the total dose received at that location are less than at a location where the same amount of fallout is deposited 1 hour after the explosion. The longer fallout particles have been airborne before reaching the ground, the less dangerous is their radiation. Within 2 weeks after an attack, the occupants of most shelters could safely stop using them, or could work outside the shelters for an increasing number of hours each day. Exceptions would be in areas of extremely heavy fallout, such as might occur downwind from important targets attacked with many weapons. Especially missile sites and very large cities. To know when to come out safely, occupants either would need a reliable fallout meter to measure the changing radiation dangers, or must receive information based on measurements made nearby with a reliable instrument. The radiation dose that will kill a person varies considerably with different people. A dose of 450 R resulting from exposure of the whole body to fallout radiation is often said to be the dose that will kill about half the persons receiving it. Although most studies indicate that it would take somewhat less, note, a number written after a statement refers the reader to a source listed in the selected references that follow Appendix D. Almost all persons confined to expedient shelters after a nuclear attack would be under stress and without clean surroundings or antibiotics to fight infections. Many also would lack adequate water and food. Under these unprecedented conditions, perhaps half the persons who received a whole body dose of 350 R within a few days would die. Fortunately, the human body can repair most radiation damage if the daily radiation doses are not too large, as will be explained in Appendix B. A person who is healthy and has not been exposed in the past 2 weeks to a total radiation dose of more than 100 R can receive a dose of 6 R each day for at least 2 months without being incapacitated. Only a very small fraction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki citizens who survived radiation doses, some of which were nearly fatal, have suffered serious delayed effects. The reader should realize that to do essential work after a massive nuclear attack, many survivors must be willing to receive much larger radiation doses than are normally permissible. Otherwise, too many workers would stay inside shelter too much of the time, and work that would be vital to national recovery could not be done. For example, if the great majority of truckers were so fearful of receiving even non-incapacitating radiation doses that they would refuse to transport food, additional millions would die from starvation alone. Myth: fallout radiation penetrates everything. There is no escaping its deadly effects. Facts: some gamma radiation from fallout will penetrate the shielding materials of even an excellent shelter and reach its occupants. However, the radiation dose that the occupants of an excellent shelter would receive while inside this shelter can be reduced to a dose smaller than the average American receives during his lifetime from X-rays and other radiation exposures normal in America today. The design features of such a shelter include the use of a sufficient thickness of earth or other heavy shielding material. Gamma rays are like X-rays, but more penetrating. Figure 1.3 shows how rapidly gamma rays are reduced in number, but not in their ability to penetrate, by layers of packed earth. Each of the layers shown is one halving thickness of packed earth, about 3.6 inches, 9 centimeters. A halving thickness is the thickness of a material which reduces by half the dose of radiation that passes through it. The actual paths of gamma rays passing through shielding materials are much more complicated due to scattering, etc., than are the straight line paths shown in figure 1.3. But when averaged out, the effectiveness of a halving thickness of any material is approximately as shown. The denser a substance, the better it serves for shielding material. Thus, a halving thickness of concrete is only about 2.4 inches, 6.1 centimeters. Page 20. Figure 1.3 is illustration of shielding against fallout radiation. Note the increasingly large improvements in the attenuation, which means reduction, factors that are attained as each additional halving thickness is packed earth is added. So it shows the person over here on the left. On the top, it shows 5 halving thicknesses of packed earth equals 18 inches. It shows 32 gamma rays, and this first one is 3.6 inches, I guess, of maybe earth. Then it gets cut down to 16. You add another 3.6. It gets cut down to 8. You add another 3.6 inches. It gets cut down to 4. You add another 3.6 of inches. It gets cut down to 2. And lastly, you add another 3.6 inches. It gets cut down to 1. That's for 32 gamma rays. That was the top row right there. Reduction in gamma rays, literally it gets cut in half after like your first 3.2 inches, then to 1/4, then to 1/8, then to 1/16, and finally at 1/32. And then the protection factors go from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32. So you should have probably 18 inches of packed earth to stop the gamma rays from getting in.